Friday night. It's the 7th of February. It's episode 166. Chucky Chats. How is everybody doing? It feels like 2 minutes since I was last sat here. It literally feels like it was a couple of days ago. How bizarre. The year is, yeah. I was looking for 2024 last week, but I think we're going to be looking for 2025 again this week. So, how is everybody doing? Hello, hello. Who else we got? Temper. Kathy, how are you? Chocolates by Loney. I'm really good, thank you. Paula's there. Hi, crew. Bruce there in California. Paula's up in Ilkley in her own studio now. How am I doing? I'm doing really good, actually. Really, really good. A bit chilly today. Mo the Baker's there. How you, Mo? Stuart's there, up in the Lake District. How are you? Just send some waves out. Made chocolates in Switzerland. How are you? I'm doing really good. Linda there in Jordan. Who else? Nettie. Nettie's on holiday somewhere very nice. It was 33 degrees, so like I'm thinking that you're somewhere exotic, not in Europe. Nettie posted really lovely. I think it was an orange or red bonbon, but really, really shiny, super glossy. Definitely see the weather in it. Who else have we got? Nadia's Chocolate Boutiques. Hello, hello. Temptation Chocolates there in Ireland as well. Billy there. We got people in Denmark. MLJ Cakes. Hello. What's a new name? I haven't seen you before. Good evening, Chocky Chat crew. Can you see what I got? I got sent this week. This was sent to me. Employee of the Year by the So Sassy fan club. How cool. It came, put that up. It came with these. This is Anime Chocolates, Anime Confiserie in Estonia. These are lovely. I'm going to tip them out so they don't go everywhere, but really, really, really nice. Really, really nice. Thank you. Love little gifts, don't we? Love little gifts. Carol's there. How are you, Carol? Gina there, down in Australia. Good evening, all. Sally, how are you? Lisa. So Sassy joined. Leanne's there. Leanne's having some airbrush problems, so I'm gonna try and resolve that this week if we can. Melissa's there. Have you seen all the panning that Melissa's doing? She said there's something else coming out next week, so we got to hold on. I think there's some cool stuff coming out. Neil there, Malta, how are you, mate? Oh, I was right. It was Salma's orange and Rari red. Happy day. They were really Nettie. They were really, 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 really nice. How are you, Aaron? Hello, Mr. Chocolate. I'm good. We got people in West Texas. Hello, hello. Is everybody ready for Valentine's? Has everybody got all their stuff done? Don't go too crazy, will you? It's a one-off day, all right? I say this every single year. Just be very, very careful with your volumes, all right? It's very difficult to get rid of Valentine's chocolates on the 15th of February. Not impossible, but it's very, very difficult. So just go careful, right? If you don't think you're going to sell masses, don't just take it either. You'll sell a lot more for Easter and Mother's Day than you will kind of Valentine's. So just go easy, right? Sally's saying I've just launched my new website this evening and I'm beyond excited. You should all know Sally at Grange Chocolates anyway. So some really, really, really nice temper sold out already. That's brilliant. Do a few more if you feel you need to, but you don't want to end up on the 15th of February with love hearts, right? Very hard sell, that one. Very, very, very hard sell. But Grange Chocolates, yeah, congratulations. We've got a website, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, is going to relaunch. We're going to relaunch our website. So we're just going through the final bits of it now. It's been a long time coming. A lot of details. You'll be able to search for everything in a much, much organised manner. And what I mean is you'll be able to pull everything across into categories. So from titanium free or all the reds or all the blues, you'll be able to It's just a much more user-friendly in terms of searching for things, and then comparing things next to each other, and then shipping modules. The whole thing, it's just the whole thing's had an overhaul. So hopefully, I think in the next couple of weeks, Mrs. So Sassy's dealing with that. I get involved in technical stuff. I do colours, I do teaching, I do chocolate chats. Anything administrative, it's not that I'm not allowed to touch, it's probably best that I don't, right? Evelyn, how are you? Evelyn's back from holiday now, I think. It's the longest holiday ever, that, definitely. Isle Bakes, just over the road from me, on the other island. We live on an island, and Isle Bakes is on another island, kind of next door to us, right? So I'm just going to send some waves out. So I'm trying to read through these as well as send waves out. In addition to my airbrushing waves, I went to shell some mold today using W2 that I've used before and added micro along the way, and it was very grainy and thick when I melted it. Can I reuse it? If you've got chocolate, if you've had chocolate stored for a long time and it's taken on moisture, and it can take on moisture in the form of humidity as well. It's not like it gets sprayed with water. It can take on moisture with humidity. If you store chocolate in a fridge, so if you have the bags and you store them in a fridge, if the bag's sealed, they're going to be absolutely fine, so airtight. If the bag's not sealed, they will take on moisture. And when you bring them back out, because of the cold temperature, bring them back out into the warm, they will collect even more moisture. When you then go to melt that, you will find that it's really, really thick. There's a couple of things that you can do. Add a newer chocolate to it and thin it down. The other thing that you can do, if you melt it and it's very, very thick, get a stick blender on it and just give it a really, really good, like with an immersion blender, just give it a really, really good blend. Just on the thing with the micro, if you add micro and it's really, really grainy, then you would need to stick blend it or just warm it up a little bit more. It depends on the temperature that you melted it to. Generally, the chocolate's very, very thick with moisture in it. If you kind of warm it up to that 40-45 point and stick blend it, you'll find it will calm down again a little bit. But essentially, once chocolate's got moisture in it, it's kind of, I would put that aside and I'd use that for ganaches, right, only. Councillor question, I saw at some point saying that they painted cocoa butter on the car, on the chocolate as a decoration. I've never done that, as it's always done in the molds. You get the same results. You can spray, so you can shell chocolate and spray cocoa butter afterwards. You'll use 3 times the amount. You use 3 times the amount to do it. There's a couple of things that you can do. So you can spray on afterwards. If you were making a cake and you wanted to put chocolate sides on it, you could then spray on it, but it's not going to be shiny, and it tends to come looks very kind of dull, matte finish to it. If you take the chocolates from a freezer, so they're kind of -18, and very quickly you spray them, you'll end up with like a velvet effect. But like I said, you end up using 3 times the amount of cocoa butter, so it is quite wasteful. I think you need to consider costs if you're going to do that. Yes, you can spray chocolates after you've made them, not a problem at all. It's very, very messy. Not something I do. I like the velvet effect. I think the challenge you have with the velvet effect is it's great for display, but they're almost impossible to handle. You can put them in the fridge and get them to set hard, but you always end up with it all over your fingers. And if customers end up with it on their fingers, because you've literally just got dried cocoa butter, not clinging to anything, they get that down their clothes, kind of everything stained, everything is kind of in a mess. So I think you just got to take careful consideration. I like the velvet look. I think it's great for Instagram in terms of a practical use. It's very, very, very wasteful, in my opinion. I think you end up spraying like 3, if not 4 times the amount that you would. But you can lay bonbons up and decorate them afterwards if you so wish. But you're not going to get the shine. And I think the other thing, and I had a conversation with somebody about this week, right? We were talking about, I had a lot of classes this week, and we were talking about fat migration. I made those earlier. I'm going to hold those up. This is our little Valentine's collection. We were talking about fat migration with ganduyas and with pralines, right? And I think that one of the observations was, did a dark chocolate shell, did a milk chocolate shell, did a white chocolate shell, all three of them had 70% ganduya, so 70% nut place, 30% chocolate. And then the same ones we did just with a sprayed layer, and we did Chocy chat. We sprayed Chocy chat and did the milk dark and white. All of the ones that were sprayed, there was no fat migration whatsoever, because the fat couldn't make it through that layer of cocoa butter, right? Whereas the other ones that were plain chocolate, the fat migration kind of took like 7-8 days. If you're spraying into a polycarbonate mold, if you're spraying into a mold, you need to here's some. Is that nice and neat? They're the ones that I actually shelled with. That's as messy as I got. Look, just. If you spray cocoa butter in, I think one of the other things that you're doing is you're creating a hard shell on the outside with that cocoa butter. And that will prolong some shelf life. Will certainly protect that bonbon, right? And it will stop fat migration as well. You can spray afterwards. Depends what effect you're looking for. But I think Sally, that you just got to consider wastage, right? And you kind of need to build a box, put cling film down, put a rack there, and hope that you can recover some of it back, because the majority of it is wasted, right? And it's not cheap to keep spraying cocoa butter everywhere. It's not. And I know I make it. It'd be really easy for me to teach you all how to waste it massively. Not how I make money. I want to teach you all how to use it efficiently and effectively and sparingly in the minimum that you need to, because it's not a cheap commodity. I know I make this stuff, right? So. Mamam Sukra is saying, I was going through some old episodes yesterday, catching up. So much great points and information. Thank you for doing these chats and keeping them all available. Absolutely welcome. I know, before anybody says anything, I know I need to load lots up onto YouTube. It's on the list. It's on the list of many things. You can see up here, this is proper emptied out this week. We got it's busy. We're busy. We're really busy at the minute. Actually, it doesn't change. It's just full on busy all the time. I think the lowest day that we have is probably Saturday. We see less sales on a Saturday, but Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is just absolutely full on. It's a good thing, not complaining. Happy boy, never imagined we'd get this far, never imagined, but this is business, right? You start making a product. For all you guys that are chocolatiers, do the same thing. You make a few boxes, I hope they sell, you sell a few, you make a few more, you sell more. You gain momentum, you work out who your customers are, and you find your customers, and then you're off on your journey. And I think once you pass that 2-year point, your products and your brand is established, and there's no turning back. Like, you just can't stop, right? The aim of the business is to generate income. Your role is to make it profitable. Simple as that. But I know we've got a lot of episodes to load up onto YouTube. It's on my list, and I will get those done at some point, right? So thanks, crew. 2 new truffles hit my shop this weekend: banoffee, banana caramel rolled in Biscoff, and blackberry caramel. That sounds nice. I did see your post. Isn't it fascinating? I was looking through the Chocy chat stuff today, and I was reading questions and looking at the answers, and it was like, would I have answered it that way? I didn't go through and I got so busy reading all the fantastic answers that I didn't actually go like, that's how I would have answered it. So I saw your post, Paula, and I saw everybody's contribution, and it's so lovely that people contribute honestly, because I did read something on the forum, and it was on the lines of using luster dust. Somebody forwarded it to me actually, and it was on the lines of luster dust, and do I mix it with an alcohol? Do I mix it with cocoa butter? Do I paint it? Do I dab it in and brush it in? And then somebody's answered and said, honestly, how long have you been doing chocolate? You know, it's the most basic of basics. And her answer was, I've been doing it 15 years. I think the reality is, it doesn't matter how long you've been doing something, it doesn't mean you know everything. Me included. Always discovering things. I always read things that make me, you know, the post that I did earlier this week on the 4 drop and 5 drop chocolate. Why would 3, 4, 5 drop? that was promoted by somebody saying my chocolate's really thick, and the question was, my chocolate's really thick, what drop is it? And they said, I don't know. And then the answer was, how long have you been doing chocolate? Same person, how long have you been chocolate? You should know this. And it's like, well, it's not on the bags. And I looked at some of the products we have. The drops aren't on all the bags. So, like, if you've got a chocolate and it doesn't say what drop it is, 3, 4, 5, melt some and then compare it against maybe like a caliber or one that you know is a drop, and then just kind of have a visual look at it and compare them. Not all brands put what viscosity is, right? I like using a 4 drop. Some people like using a 3 drop. If I'm doing Easter eggs, we'll do a 2 drop, right? No issue at all. I want them a little bit thicker. But reading the posts are what really prompt me to start sharing some other information. So always learning. If you don't know how to do something, I think on the Chocy Chat page, don't be afraid to say, I know I've been doing chocolate a long time, but I don't know how this is done. That's your opportunity to ask. If anybody goes on Chocy Chat and answers in that way of, you should know this, it's a basic, I will jump straight on it, trust me. And you can post anonymously, or you can post your name. I don't think anybody in the Chocy Chat page or on here is criticised. You'll never get criticism from somebody that's already successful. Do you know that? Like a millionaire is never going to belittle somebody that's working really hard trying to make money. They'll encourage them, right? So the hate and shade tends to come from people that have failed. That's my opinion and perspective over the years. So yeah, don't be afraid to ask a question and say, I know I should know this, but I don't. But how do you such and that? Like, it's not a problem if you don't know how to use luster dust. It's truly not a problem at all. It's not a problem at all. Ask the question. And I think in Chocy Chat, you'll get lots and lots that will say, oh, I do this, 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 and this. And you will get this ball of knowledge delivered to you in a nice way by nice people. So yeah, don't be afraid to use that resource, right? And have a read through some of the old, through some of the older ones, and the older questions. God, a plethora of amazing information. It's really, really good. Andrew there, up in Scotland, in Aberdeen. So hello, how are you, mate? I had it in the pantry on a sealed container, not on the fridge. I'll use it for ganaches. If you think a chocolate has got moisture in it, when you melt it, it's very, very thick. As long as it doesn't say 1 or 2 drop on the bag, if it's really, really thick, it's fair to assume that it's taking on moisture, right? So, would like to ask when you'll start shipping to Jordan. We don't ship to Jordan. We have done, and it's complicated. We don't ship to every country in the world. There are some countries that we just don't send to, and that's nothing other than horrendous problems with the internal postage, right? So our challenge with Jordan is that it arrives and it just sits for weeks and weeks and weeks, and nothing happens, right? So, and there's some other countries, there's some countries like that in the EU, not so far from us. I sent a parcel to Bahrain on Monday, and it arrived on Thursday. So I sent it Monday. It was collected 2 o'clock on Monday, and it arrived in Bahrain on Thursday. And the ones that I sent to Scotland hadn't arrived yet, and it's just, no idea. We had products go to Holland and it's 2 weeks, and we have products go to America and it's 3 days, and I can't work out the whys or what fors of why some countries, but there are countries that we don't ship to simply because stuff goes missing, and I end up refunding the customer, and I also lose the product, so I take a double hit. And I think once we've had 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 occasions, that's when we will say, actually, do you know what, we won't ship there. There's a country in the EU we don't ship to, but the people have their product delivered to the next country on the border, and it's a tiny country, and it's just much, much easier for them because it gets there in 3, 4 days, right? Whereas that country, it's 3 weeks. So might have mentioned that one already. So it has its challenges. So I like the idea of blackberry crumble, Paula. Banana caramel, I like the idea. I like the banana caramel. I like banana as long as it's toasted. right? As long as it's roasted and it's really like caramelized, I like it. So, and the idea why my chocolate bars are looking dull with spots, not shiny, using a polycarbonate mold. Could be a tempering issue. It could also be a cooling issue. We've got, you've heard me talk about this. I don't have a tablet nearby. You can polish the mold all you want. You can polish the mold all you want. That is not where the shine comes from. The shine is from having a clean surface. So we would polish them. We'd polish them so they're clean and streak free. You don't need to get obsessive and polish for hours facing north, blue dog, yellow trousers, all that kind of stuff, right? Very often, like these ones, I will give these a hair dry. We'll give these a warm and we'll polish them. I probably won't go into the cavities because they all look like sparkly clean to me, and it looks like everything retracted nicely, right? So you would, there's the tempering, and that's what will make the chocolate shrink, but there's also that speed of that cooling, all right? And with bars and with tablets, clean that surface, make sure it's polished. Make sure the chocolate's tempered. You can pour at a lower temperature if you need to. I would suggest, though, that you pour at 32. And then you're waiting for that to skin over, and then you want to cool it down very, very quickly so it shrinks away. If you've got spots all over it, they could be contraction marks, right? So it could just be marks where if the mold was too cold, as the chocolate poured across, it stutters, right? And that causes like streak marks. Could do many things. I'd have a look at, like if you've got, if they're dull, it will be the tempering, and the tempering temperature. I think the biggest mistake I see in chocolate, and you've all heard me say this dozens and dozens and dozens of times, when we call, like we got cocoa butter. I see this is the most common one, right? Because I always get this. Oh, I tempered the cocoa butter. Okay, and then what did you do? It's like, then I warmed it up. We put the cocoa butter in there, 40 degrees, whatever temperature, sit it over water, stir it with Thermopen, my favourite tool in the world. We'd stir it with that or with one of those, right? We'll stir it all round and drive that temperature down until, for cocoa butter, until we reach 26. If we need to warm it up, we do it really, really gently. The more aggressive you warm up that cocoa butter, or chocolate, because chocolate's got cocoa butter in it, the more aggressively you warm that up, the more the beta crystals you break. And the beta crystals are these fine filaments, okay, where one crystal joins to another, joins to another, joins to another. They're long, long chains, okay? As you damage one or you break them, that network within the chocolate, which is causing it to be tempered, breaks. So it just could be that you're tempering your chocolate and then warming it up too aggressively and then pouring it, right? This is where using silk or using micro or using silk blocks is an advantage, because we're using the chocolate the other way around. We're adding it to chocolate at 34, blending it in, and when it reaches 32, 31 and a half, we use it. There's no need to warm up, right? The warm up is the damage. So baked at 311. I just have a look at how are you tempering and what are your temperatures, because you can polish the molds all you want. You can polish them for days. They are not going to make your chocolates more shiny. It's getting it in the right order of temperature of the mold, temperature of the chocolate, the quality of that tempering, the cooling, okay, and then the retraction, and then getting it out of the mold in that right order. Okay. Is it good temperature to store the chocolates in the fridge after they're made to keep it fresh? You can. It depends on your room temperature. Like this time of year, all mine are out. All mine are out at room temperature now. So we will store all those at room temperature. It's kind of nice 16, 17 degrees in here. If I was making chocolate, if I'm honest, with the dehydrator on, the room will go a little bit warmer. Where I make the cocoa butters, the room's too cold sometimes, so I literally have to put the heating on, otherwise you start having problems. If you want to store your chocolates in the fridge, you can. If your room's too warm, absolutely not a problem at all, and it will just prolong the shelf life. There's a risk if they're in the fridge for too long, there's a risk that any ganaches dehydrate, so you end up with this like little bell. So you got a shell and the ganache is like pulled away, but that happens after many weeks, right? Store them in the fridge, and when you need them, let them come back to room temperature before you post them, or before you give them to customers. It's not a problem keeping. It's really not a problem keeping stuff in the fridge. we tend to store stuff at 8 degrees, right? I don't need to go any lower than that. Most fridges are set between 3 and 4 degrees. It's just too cold, and you end up burning twice the amount of energy. So you might as well set your fridge at 8 degrees. I'm not keeping anything high risk in there like cream. So 8 degrees is more than enough for working. 10 degrees, maybe in the summer. It's not a problem to keep it in the fridge. You just don't want to eat it cold, and you don't want to give it to customers really, really cold, but it's not going to damage it in any shape or way at all. Oh God, here's a question. Hannah is saying, what's the best brand chocolate and what is your opinion on Valish? I like Valish. There's a couple in there. They have a 64%. Really, really nice. Can't remember that. I quite like Valish chocolate. I think, you know what else I like about Valish chocolate? They do the little callets and they're really, really tiny and they melt so much easier than the giant, I like some of the Luca chocolate I like, but they're massive blobs. They really do take some melting, right? Valish do these really, really tiny, I think they're half gram, like callets, right? I don't know if I could tell you what the best brand chocolate is. I'm not a chocolate snob in any way, shape or form. I like Calibut, I like Cocoberry, I like ICAM, I like Valish, I love Belcolade, I like Valrhona. I think you need to choose I don't think there's such a thing as the best brand. And my opinion is, buy the one that you can afford, buy the one that you can get the quantity of. You know, I always liken this story back to, we had a dessert, we were an award-winning kitchen, and it kind of put us in the kind of top 1% in the country. And we did this chocolate dessert and ordered this specific chocolate. The rehearsals went through, we did all the trials, we did everything. Everything's ready to go. And at the point where we come to launch it, we can't get hold of the chocolate because it was a one-off, it's an Edelweiss actually. It was a Weiss chocolate. And we were given this 5 kilo bag, and then when we came to get more, they're like, well, no, you can't get any more. Like, right, so you gave me a bag of chocolate I can never get again. Brilliant. And we've done all our trials and rehearsals on this dish. And you know, when you're working at kind of Michelin star level, that's just not that's a complete menu rewrite, okay? We could have found something similar, but we've done the print work, we've done all of it, right? So I don't think there is such a thing as the best chocolate or the best brand. I think they all bring a variety. You know, Valrhona is very expensive, but has a massive multi-million-pound marketing team behind it, with bibs and aprons and all kinds of awards for chefs so that they can look good and wear a badge. And then other brands like I like Luca. I like their story of sustainability and how long they've been in business and how long they've been trading for. They're older than Calibut, Cocoberry. Calibut, Cocoberry, I think they have their place and they have their price point. I don't buy a chocolate based on whether it's the best brand. I buy it on whether I like the chocolate. Like, I like chocolate gold, and somebody said to me, like, ugh, do you know, you shouldn't call yourself an artisan chocolate if you like chocolate gold. I like caramelized chocolate. I love chocolate gold. I think it's really nice snacking, and I think it bridges the gap between white and milk chocolate, right? And milk chocolate can be a little bit too sweet, and I think the gold bridges that gap. I like ICAM Edelweiss. The white is just so low sweetness that it just blends with virtually anything. All the people I know that don't like white chocolate really like that one. So I wouldn't, you know, I think, Hannah, I would never say this is the best brand to use. I think buy the one that you can get good resources of, right? So, you know, if Calibut's available, and also the price point, because you can't, like, if your customers can't afford lobster, you can't put lobster on a menu. Simple as that, right? So you've got to grow your audience until they have trust to buy the bigger branded or more expensive, more refined, single origin, single estate chocolates, right? Once you've got that audience, then absolutely. But there will be a time where you want to make an economical, well-priced, entry-level chocolate, bonbon, tablet, bar, whatever it is that you're doing. and using something like, you know, Equatorial or Fleur de Cow. Fleur de Cow by Cocoa Barry is my, like, if I could never use, if I was only ever allowed to use one chocolate for the rest of my career, it would be Fleur de Cow, hands down, without a doubt. I think it is the master of everything in terms of flavour, taste, profile, fluidity. Don't like the price. The price is not suitable for the product that I do for the customers that I got at the price points that I want to sell at, right? So, and we're VAT registered, so I've got to add another 20% on, which hurts. So I just look 20% more expensive than everybody else. So there's home producers can make things 20% cheaper than me, a fifth, right? So you got to take all that into account, right? Also, I just don't see a point in shelling. I've never understood why would you shell with an expensive chocolate? Because it's 2 grams. If you're lucky of a bonbon, 14-gram bonbon, you're lucky if it's 2 grams. The interest is in the filling. The interest is in the centre. That's what you're selling. So use that for the good chocolate, and then use something economical for the shell because it's volume, right? Sally, actually, do you know what? You can paint on afterwards, but you'll lose that shine. If you're doing a workshop, what I would do is temper the colours for them, because it takes a few minutes. If you've got a dehydrator, just kind of temper them, hold them at 35, and just give them a quick cool down, and get them to paint with that. If you get them to paint on afterwards, it is likely to be an absolute horrendous mess. However, it could work. It could work, but you would need to temper. You would still need to temper the cocoa butter if you're painting it afterwards, right? I need staff. Yeah, I've got lots of helpers. Chocolate Spicy, hello. Also made a caramel non-water based for the first time. Came out amazing. Second time Ryan tried to be extra careful and perfect, and it flopped. Turned out super rock hard after cooling overnight. So you made a caramel. Did you add cream to it? Because if you take, once you take sugar over 176, you'll pass what we call hard crack. So as soon as you pour that out, it will crystallise rock hard solid. Gina, there is Gina. I'm going to put you in touch with a friend of mine that does keto chocolate. He might be able to give you some. Be able to give you some guidance on that, because he uses stevia. And something else as well. But yeah, Gina, send me a message and I'll put you in touch with somebody that does all that. I'll give you some good advice there. So, mind your tempo. Hello. We got Ned at N2 Sweets. He posts some amazing stuff this week. Did you see? If you know Ned at N2 Sweets, he posted. He had some cocoa pods deliver. I kid you not. They were huge. They were the size of that, right? They were huge. I saw some huge cocoa pods in Tanzania, but they were at the point where like they dropped off the tree and they'd gone past the picking point. But the ones he got sent were absolutely giganticus. Jason there, Napa Valley, how are you, mate? Alison in Canada. Alison Double Desserts, how are you, Alison? Yeah, keto sweeteners. I kind of wanted to say that. I wanted to say that without the risk of offending anybody, but I had some keto chocolate when I was in Jordan last, and I couldn't. I just couldn't. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't. Not for me at all. Yeah, that's Aaron. Aaron's got a good answer there. She says, I'm keto myself and eat dark chocolate. You just have to give up carbs or sugar in other areas during a day to compensate. I feel white chocolate with chemical sweeteners. I cannot stomach stevia. I just can't at all. It's just not for me. I was given some. Have you seen the green cans of cola? and that had in it, and I had one sip of that, and it's just like I threw it. While everybody looked at me in absolute disgust, I'm like, no, in the trash. And it was a baby sip, like, no, not for me, not at all. Today I used a supposedly 4-drop chocolate white, and it was getting very thick at 32. Is it my room temp at 24? Leanne, no, it won't be that. Do you know the drops on chocolate? Like we could make a chocolate right now, and if I want to call it 2-drop, I can, because it's not a particularly scientific approach, right? I saw this. I'm not going to say what brand, but I saw this whilst working with a brand, and I kind of looked and went like, you are kidding me, right? That's what we do. All it was a glass sheet, right, at 45 degrees, and they warmed the chocolate to working temperature, in which case it was one at 29 degrees, and they got numbers down the side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay, and it's at 45 degrees, and they tipped it, and where it stopped is where they called it like 3-drop. And it's like, but why have you got a different branded chocolate? They're like, we don't do other branded chocolate, we only do our own, and that's how we do it. It's like, well, how long should it take to get to the bottom? They're like, if it reaches the bottom, it's a 5. I'm like, all right, well, what if it reached 6? And their answer was, we don't have a 6-drop chocolate, we do 5. Hugely scientific, that. It's up there with the little graph that's on the side of the bags, and I think you all know my opinion on that. It's the most useless piece of literature ever put on the side of a packet. Absolutely pointless. Different brands, different chocolates. You know, I know that I've got 3 drops which I think are a 4, and I've got 3 drops that I think are nearer to a 2. I think chocolate gold, I think it's nearer to a 2-drop than it is a 3, if I'm honest. It won't be your room temperature, and a chocolate at 32, you know, chocolate at 33 is as fluid as it's ever going to get. Same as cocoa butter. At 33, it's as fluid as it will ever get. If you melt one to 45 and one to 33, they'll be about the same viscosity, right? So, and that's the cocoa butter. If there's more mass in there, cocoa mass in there, it will be thicker, visibly. So it's not going to be, you know, at 32, you're kind of nearly there in terms of fluidity, so it won't be that. It might just be the chocolate. But if you found a 4-drop chocolate, you know, white chocolate's generally very, very fluid. This is why everybody that caps with white chocolate stands back in amazement. They're like, oh, I'm amazing. White chocolate is very, very fluid. In fact, you know, W2 is probably nearer a 4-drop than it is a 3, right? Which is why it's a little bit easier, but it does very thin shells. Once you work out that, if you think you've got a very thin chocolate, we put it in the mould and we'll leave it a little bit longer. I did a post during the week, and if anybody noticed, but there were 2 chocolates there. One was a 3-drop, one was a 4-drop, and you can see when I turn it over how it hits the deck, and you can see the individual pools. Whereas the 4-drop, when I tipped it out, it literally just splattered everywhere. Use the one that you like, though. Do you know, 3-drop, 4-drop. 3-drop will give you thicker shells. It takes much more tapping. A 4-drop will give you a thinner shell, but doesn't retract as easier. And it's a much more delicate process. But I like working with 4-drop because I don't get the air bubbles, and I, kind of mastered that. But I do tend to leave them in the mould. They'll be in the mould 30-40 seconds rather than 20 seconds for a 3-drop line. Yes, we ship to Kuwait, Linda. We do. We ship to Kuwait. Jordan's just one of those. Jordan, Lebanon, we've never had any success posting there. There's a few countries in that region that we don't ship to. Do you know? But Kuwait definitely, gets, as long as you've got a phone number. We played with this. I had to email nearly like half the orders this week saying, I need a phone number. If you do an order, please put a phone number on it. You'd be amazed how much that speeds up the process. Especially if they can't find your address. Because if they can't find your address, they don't email you. The driver will just phone. And if there's no phone number, they take it back to the depot. So, yeah, the artificial sweeteners have a funny aftertaste. I thought of doing a mint bonbon to cover the cooling effects. They do act strange in the ganache. I never feel well after having stevia. I know what it is. I think people are very susceptible to it. So, You could, so people on keto, can they have honey, right? And if you're, I wouldn't use 100%, I wouldn't use 100% chocolate, that's like eating coal, really strong. But an 85 would be nice, an 84, 85 chocolate would be nice. It's really minimum sugar. Some good answers on stuff here. There's some really good answers here about the keto stuff, actually. Maybe we need to get a guest on to have a chat about that. So, for my production runs, am I using an airbrush or a spray gun? Both. Depends on the volume. For this batch that we did, it's all airbrush. I took my time. I think I sprayed those the back end of last week, and I didn't get to making the chocolates until kind of Wednesday. Wednesday night I shelled them. I had a small window of opportunity, and I filled them Thursday morning. It depends what I'm doing. I can't do the detail with the big airbrush, with the big Q5, the big turbine. I can spray really, really quickly, but I can't spray refined, so we do a mix of both. It really depends what the design is, right? Depends what the design is. Where we might line the molds up and then do splats, which I quite like now, because a year ago I hated them, but now I quite like them. Changes for everybody, right? Changes. You look back on stuff a year ago and go, what was I thinking? And then there's stuff that I hated a year ago that I quite like now. So, and that's the creative side, right? We might do splats on it and then use the Q5 the turbine just to not back spray, but just completely spray them and then recover what's left. So it's a bit bright. In terms of I'll use an airbrush, but I don't like using the, like the Grex, the green gun. I don't like that. I want to be able to press down for air and then turn the cocoa butter on and off. I don't like the trigger of gradually increasing. You pull the trigger and stuff comes out straight away. I don't like that. I've been playing with airbrushes quite a few years, so I'm very used to the action on it, and I can control. Other thing I do, I'll show you. Don't always have that on the tip of my finger when I'm holding it. Very often my finger's halfway down, so I can control it a little bit more. I don't tend to have my finger right on the top. Very hard to spray like that. It's much easier if your finger's all the way along, right? And it's a bit more of a movement. So also helps the fact that break my fingers so many times that they kind of go in an awkward direction. So I don't really like triggers. I don't really feel in control. I don't feel like I have the right amount of control either. So just eat dark chocolate, right? Just have a snacking dark chocolate. If I had a bag of fleur de cow, that would be my snacking chocolate. Do you know that? I'd like the Manjari. I like Valrona's Equatorial as well. That's one of my favourites. Cocoa Barry milk chocolate. I love Alunga, and they've got another one called Anaya. Anaya is really, really nice. Really, really lovely spicy undertones to it, but it's a 2-drop chocolate, so you can't shell with it. And if you want to, it's good for Easter eggs, but it's too expensive. And if I wanted to shell with it, I'd need to thin it down, in which case I'd change the profile to take a 2-drop all the way to a 4-drop. Looking at 15-16% cocoa butter, and I just don't want to do that to something like Anaya. Snacking chocolate, fleur de cow, yeah. God, yeah, I'd destroy a whole bag in one sitting, right? Flying banana. How are you, Paul? Keylink are out of stock of cocoa butter and said it's a supplier issue. Don't know when they'll get more in. Any ideas? Don't know. I don't know. Our cocoa butter was pre-bought, so I kind of don't really look at that. We look at that market and we measure against it. In terms of pricing, we have to. Otherwise, I'd just get cleaned out in one go if we weren't competitive. I don't know what as strawberry, any of the other suppliers. I just have a Google to see what you can get. Evelyn. depends on the volumes as well. Like it depends on the volume. So Gina, you could just say I don't do keto chocolate. This is what we got, 75%, and you'll love it, right? And then tell them they'll have to do without sugar for the rest of the day if they eat your chocolate. It's quite a good bargaining chip, that, right? Gina, you could just go like, you know, everything's going to be sugar free apart from the chocolates I give you. I think that's a win-win, Gina. You should go down that route. That's how I would politically negotiate that one. This is what you're having. You're going to like it. I love gold chocolate too, and I don't like ruby. I don't know what the fuss is about. Leanne, it sounds like you literally just spoken the words I was thinking. I'm quite known for not liking ruby. I don't get it. It's a nice colour. It's a nice colour. I don't get the hype around ruby chocolate. I like the 5 varieties that we have in terms of milk, white, dark, caramelised. And it's caramelised milk or caramelised sugar, which is the gold. So, I can't caramelised milk. I like those varieties. I just don't know where ruby sits, because when I tried it, it's super, super sweet. Really, really sweet. I felt it's sweeter than W2. But then when I see something red, my expectation is to taste red fruits, and it kind of wasn't there, right? So, Linda's there. I had a lovely meeting with Linda the other day. It's absolute fun. I love seeing Linda and Mark. Mark makes the Mark is Mr. Zardos. Art in Chocolate is Linda, and I've known them a long time. And we do classes occasionally, and it is just an absolute bundle of laughter. Mark's in the background chipping in. Just hilarious, absolutely brilliant, and a really nice class as well, I think. Yeah, do you know what we've done? So we've done this collection, the Valentine's one, and we've tried to keep it really quite not low sugar, low sweet. Okay, because we have used sugar. So whether it's caramelized or not, it's still sugar, right? But perceptively, we've tried to make what is quite a savoury collection. And we did the raspberry caramel, which tried to make it much less sweet. So we caramelised more sugar this time, rather than the 50% of that recipe. And then one of those in there, we did the caramelised nuts. Anybody that's a subscriber, you will. Anybody that's on the subscriber, you'll see the little thing that I did with the nuts and how we sand them and then caramelise them. So we got hazelnut paste, which is the hazelnuts and just the salt. And then we did a 74% dark chocolate, and then put that caramelised nut in the middle of it, and it's really, really, really nice. It's so savoury, you wouldn't even describe it as sweet. But then we did it in a 51% dark chocolate, which kind of complemented it. So it wasn't all, but it's really, really savoury. And I quite like the idea that I've got a collection that isn't super, super sweet all the way across, right? There is certainly an age group that would prefer less sweet things, right? And in chocolate work, I think it's a good way to get a balance. You make a gandu, you do a nut paste, you make a ganduya, whether it's almond or hazelnut, and you put a dark chocolate in it, you can make something really, really savoury. There is an older generation that would really value that, rather than having something that's very, very sweet and sickly. Because, you get to number 12 in a bonbon box, you're like, I need a drink, I've had enough sugar, right? So, here's a question. My bars are breaking when I cap them on my polycarbonate molds. Why could this be if I'm tempering properly? You twist the bar. If you twist these, after they've retracted, you'll crack them. If it's a dark chocolate, it's very, very thin, it's very brittle, you'll crack them. If you are filling them and you're waiting overnight in the cold, that will crack them. And then also, if they've retracted too much when you filled, if there's too much of a gap between, once they've retracted, you can fill them. You don't need to wait overnight. Nobody's going to break in and make the chocolates any better. Once you've shelled and they've retracted, fill them. Once that filling's firm enough, if that's an hour, if that's 2 hours, cap them. If with bars, because you've got generally going to be a little bit thicker and it's a bigger mass, okay, or it's a wider surface area, if you push down too hard, if you push down really, really hard when you're capping, you'll crack them. I haven't got a bar mold. Yeah, here we go. Here's one that I brought back from, this was decorated in Bahrain, and I'm going to show that. They crack across that way, right? They crack that way. So if they've retracted too much and then you filled them, and when I say retracted too much, if they retracted and then you go to fill them 2 days later, that's when you're going to have problems, because the chocolate's very, very brittle, right? As soon as they're retracted, fill them. And as soon as that filling's firm enough, cap them. And as soon as that cap is firm, get them out. Get them into boxes, get them into molds. Get them into boxes, get them into containers, get them stored away, right? So, I mean, if they're releasing from the mold nicely and they've cracked, then it's not your tempering, it's just the process of following that, you know. Dark chocolate's very, very brittle. Dark chocolate's probably the easiest one to use. In terms of it retracts so much faster than milk and white or caramelized. Caramelized is probably the slowest one, the most difficult, because it's quite malleable, it's quite bendy. Even if you set it with 2% silk, it's still, you know, it's not as brittle, and doesn't shard quite as quickly as quite as aggressively as dark chocolate. But I suspect it's not your tempering. I suspect it's retracted and you filled them, and then the gaps got bigger because it continues to shrink, and you press down too hard. Could be that. I'm using new chocolate to me from República de Coco, Ecuador White 31, a lot thicker than W2 but less sweet. Go for it, Leanne, because you know, the benchmark for many years is W2, and it's very, very, very sweet, really, really sweet. You know, we use one. There's one Agostini iCam have got one called Edelweiss, and I think it's like 24% sugar, which is detectable. But when you start making some of the, when I do matcha tea, for example, it works in a treat. But if I use W2, it's too sweet, it kills off the flavour of matcha. So, you know, also anything we do that's like orange or lemon, and we use that Edelweiss, that lower sugar white chocolate, the acidity comes up a little bit more with some of the zesty fruits and citrus, the calamansis and yuzus and that kind of thing. So I quite like that. But the benchmark for many years has been that W2, which everybody's, you know, went to. There's some others, you know, Karma do a chocolate, I think, the Satin Blanc, really, really white, really, really, really white, and the price is off the charts. Absolutely crazy money. So I had one bag of 811 a while ago, wouldn't temper easily, constantly too thick to work with, was driving me mad. As soon as I opened another bag, everything worked fine. There have been some comments on various format about Calibut chocolate, and people suggesting a change in recipe. I suspect not, because they're a big brand. I don't think they have any reason to change their process at all. But some people have been commenting on a batch that's really, really thick, and it was the 823. If you can, open another bag, and if you have a good, reasonable supplier, they might take that bag back as a complaint, right? So you have a right to return, right? Do you have any new colours? Not yet. Give me a couple. It's going to be a couple of weeks. It'll be a couple of weeks before there's a blue coming out. It's going to be a couple of weeks yet. And is the halal? Yeah, all our products halal. All of them. They are vegan. So absolutely. Robert Kingdom there is Exo Chocolates London. Happy days. Are you not allowed honey on keto? I eat keto, and I'm making keto bonbons, just learning myself. 8% is the chocolate of choice. 85% is chocolate choice. I don't know enough about it, right? I don't. Keto, no, I'd sit here and eat a bag of chocolate, not a problem at all. I'm built for comfort, not speed, right? I like Ribena everywhere I go. We left a whole bottle of it in Bahrain. Gosh, allulose. These are all brand names anyway, right? Stevia, allulose, they're all brand names, right? So you can find other things. Diabetic sugars, look for those. It's turned into a whole keto night, isn't it? There's some really good information here, though, if you're reading. Is there a huge difference between C823 and 823? No, I wouldn't have thought so. I don't know what the C stands for in the C823. Can't imagine there'd be much of a difference. 823 is the product marker of the milk chocolate. So the C, one of them has natural vanilla, and then the other one has a synthetic vanilla, I think. So that would be the only difference, but I can't imagine. I'd go online and have a look. I think that would give you the answer, right? So ruby chocolate is good with freeze-dried raspberry. The only way I like it. Freeze-dried raspberries are really, really sour, aren't they? And then ruby's really, really sweet. So I can see how one would counteract the other. Still not going to get me to buy any. I thought ruby was a strawberry flavour. Calabat have a cappuccino flavoured calettes, but they're super expensive. Yeah. Funny when they flavour things, they cost more, right? Do you have suggestions for Liam's issue? Inquiring minds are dying to know what I've missed. I worry it may be shipping damage to the compressor. Erin, I'm going to deal with that. Yeah, I messaged Leanne earlier. We're going to try and resolve that. I think I got my suspicion. The problem is I need to see a video. Pictures don't really help me. So I did message her literally 2 minutes before I came on. So we're going to try and solve that this week. So. So the flying bananas, just he's nailed it. I'm going to read this out anyway, right? So I'm not a fan of ruby, but was trying out a local elderflower gin for a bonbon filling, and it actually goes really well with the pink abomination. So Paul's going to call it he's not going to call it ruby, he's going to call it the pink abomination. I love Chocky Chat Crew. I'm employee of the year as well, so you have to be nice to me tonight. Acids, you know, Erin, it's a really good example, that, because I think we talked about acids before on here. Maybe you need to revisit that one in terms of citric acid, malic acid, and why would I use one over the other, and at what point would I use a vinegar, which is acetic acid? At what point would I use a vinegar in a caramel rather than using like a malic acid or a citric acid, and what is it that I'm trying to achieve? Because if we raise acidity, we'll raise fruit flavour, and if we raise the salt level, we lower bitterness. And vinegar's an interesting one, because what these all are, they are just seasonings, right? We do salt and pepper on things, and when you're making ganaches, you've got your recipe. We know it works. It's a formula, so it's a formula with a technique written into it. This is how it's made. Follow these steps, you will get this end result. The end result would still need adjusting, because different creams, different fat flavors in cream. If you have cream that's in the middle of summer, it's much nicer than the cream you have in the winter. The cream that you have in the winter is from cows that are fed dry feed, and then cows that are in a field eating grass, the cream is, you can tell the difference between the two. You taste the two throughout the seasons. The same thing with, like, you get your ganaches, you got your formula, you got your technique, you get to the end. The seasonings are the salt and the acids, and whether that's wet acids in terms of vinegar, or whether you use malic acids, which is softer, or citric acid. It's really about raising that flavour profile. Everything that we make savoury in a kitchen, we would consider seasoning it. So we'd add salt, we'd add pepper, grind a pepper at the end, and we'd taste it again. We should do the same thing with our fillings. I certainly do this with the caramels. But then we have a rule in this house where if you shout taste it, everybody comes running. And we've done this with the girls since they were babies, right? If you want your food to improve, grab a spoon and taste some. Just because the recipe says you've got to do this, you need to taste it before you commit, because that's the last check to see if it's going to be all right. Okay? The last check that you get is your mouth, this system that says yes or no, right? Oh, Linda, you're welcome. I have classes that I top up with, people that like 3 years ago more, who still kind of have classes occasionally, or they want to talk through problems or talk through scenarios or issues, or they've got ideas, or it's just a catch up, or just to stay back on track, or look at different things. But it's all very interesting, because we'll do the class and then tag on another kind of hour at the end, just chatting. And it's Chocy Chat Crew, right? It's Chocy Chat Crew. That's all it is. Let me scroll, but oh God, it's jumped. Pink abomination. Any tips on making a fruity caramel for a beginner, and what's the shelf life of a cream-based caramel? Well, all caramels are cream-based, or they should be. So chocolate-based caramels. On my page, there is a baked 311. There is a salt caramel recipe, which thousands have used. It's like a go-to for a lot of people. So there's a salt caramel ganache. There's a salt caramel ganache. The salt caramel's quite liquidy. Quite a challenge to cap, so you need to chill it. Then there is the salt caramel ganache, which uses the gold. And then there is also a raspberry and white chocolate fruit caramel, which I know many people have tried and done the raspberry and rhubarb. We did a raspberry and rose one the same way. It's really, really nice. Go and have a look at my page. There's recipes there. And they're not... Here we go, and we're off. They are not recipes I've written, they are recipes that I use. They are recipes that hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in Chocy Chat use. So I know they work. They do work, because they're the ones that I use. We don't just write recipes and bang it up on to get attraction. These are useful things, right? So Rania's saying that she wasn't nominated Employee of the Year. You're Employee of the Century, Rania. And it says, I'll have to put your name in it. Rania needs an Employee of the Year trophy. Can't you go in for the sales and marketing awards or something? I think we'll do that, right? Chief Executive of the Year, so. Which is better for caramel fillings, candy thermometer or an infrared? I don't use an infrared. It's going to give you an inaccurate reading. The best is a candy thermometer. However, get yourself one of those. It's called a Thermapen. Thermapen 1, Thermapen Classic. Doesn't really matter. These are the Ferraris of thermometers in terms of accuracy. It's a good investment. We got some very, very clever equipment. Really, we're very lucky. We're very lucky that we have some clever equipment. That's probably that is the most important thing that I own. I can't do anything without that. The challenge you have with infrared is you can't take the temperature of liquids, so it will give you a wrong reading. It will tell you the temperature of the bottom of the pan, but it won't tell you the temperature of the caramel, because the laser goes straight through it. So it's very good. They're very good for hard surfaces, fridge, piping bags, table, mould, that kind of thing. But if you want to take the temperature of a liquid, there's one of those. I think the difference with this is, you can all see the dial on that. If I just put it onto the very, very bottom of just the very, very tip, will go up in temperature. Also, if I hold it all the way, okay, so it will measure that temperature all the way up to the top. And most don't do that. Most, it's just that very, very bottom bit, right? So that's the technology they're paying for. It's that whole stem is taking an average temperature of everything, right? So infrared, not so accurate. Why would a recipe call for 36 cream when double cream's 40? Double cream isn't 48. Extra thick cream is 48. Double cream is generally 36, 38. Extra thick cream is about 48, and clotted cream I think is 52. And you can't cook with it because when you try and heat it up, it separates and it splits, right? So because there's not enough water content in it. So ouch! If I get a message from Paul, if I get a message from Calibert or the team up in they're just north of Oxford. Well, right, I'm gonna get going. It's 9:30. It's 9:34. I think I've got all those. When will you have Chocy Cosmetics by Sophia back in stock? Linda, she's going to start working on them this weekend because we were talking about it just for Chocy Chat, right? So now her homework and everything else is up to date. She's going to get on with those. So yeah, they'll be doing shortly. Orders to Jordan. I think what we'll have to do is do the order and we'll have to bring it out with us and deal with it that way. So next time we're in Jordan, which could be soon, I think. Have a great week. Please don't go over the top with the Valentine's stuff. If you've got the orders, fulfill them, but you don't want to get to the 15th with lots of stuff left over. What else was I going to say? I'll stock up the remainder of this week. We got a lot of work going on, lots of classes to schedule as well because all that's back on now. What else was I going to say? Be nice to people, especially those closest to you. It's Chocy Chat. Have an amazing week, everybody.